Okay, Derek, thank you again for being here
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
for the first time ever.
Yeah, first time. Yeah, just
first,
sat down, got situated.
first try.
Yeah.
Um, who are you?
My name is Derek Dokter. I would consider myself to be a newbie in the bodybuilding world, entry level bodybuilding.
You're coming up on your first season, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So I'm excited for that. And outside of that, I am a regular guy.
Regular
It's
guy.
not much to me. Yeah, I would consider myself the bar, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before, but you have a pretty normal job, right?
Yeah. Normal people hours, Monday through Friday. So
Yeah. So for the people who might watch this and think to themselves, like, because you are very, perhaps unusually committed to the pursuit of bodybuilding. People watching this who might think to themselves, like, I have a real job and like responsibilities. I can't do that. I would make the argument. I'd say that you are the argument that that's not necessarily true. But you can find ways to make it work if you know enough and you apply it correctly. Um, how did we meet?
yeah. Well, first off, I 100% agree with that statement. Anything is possible if you put your mind to it. I know it's
Anything is
so
possible if you just
cliche,
believe.
so cliche to say, but I truly do believe it is, and I am a prime example. I am by all means just a regular person figuring things
Yeah.
out on my own, doing it on my own, and I would consider myself to have gotten fairly far competitively in sports prior.
Yeah.
Again, more or less all on my own. So it is 100% possible. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
um, and then we met. I was in the gym. I think it was probably one of my first few months of lifting. And I remember both you and Christine were at the deadlift platform.
Yeah. I know you. So you're saying this, you're telling me this earlier, and it's kind of crazy for me to think. I didn't actually, I don't think I knew this until you just said it earlier, that you've only been lifting for 4-ish years now.
Yeah, a little under. So I was running full time all the way up until I believe it was the start or halfway through 2021. Yeah, it would have been about halfway through 2021, closer towards the latter end of that year.
Wow.
Is
Yeah.
when I removed myself from running. Yeah.
Removed yourself from running.
Yeah, well, the reason I say it like that is because a lot of people, unfortunately, were on the brink of having some of the best seasons of their lives when COVID happened.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the meets and invitationals and even our entire season for the NCAA was shut down. So a lot of the people were forced to leave the sport.
Yeah.
So naturally, I say that I removed myself. It was my decision. It wasn't because of COVID. COVID may have helped me ease my mind with that decision, but
Yeah.
ultimately I was the one responsible for removing myself from the sport. Yeah.
It was a weird time. So you exited running basically and discovered lifting.
Correct. Yeah.
So at first it wasn't bodybuilding. You were kind of just going to the gym to lift.
I was just going to the gym to scratch an itch that was no longer being scratched by running. I have always been very physical individual, so I needed something to kind of just do. Otherwise, I would have started to chew my hands probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got into the gym and I would just kind of sort of the first few weeks I'd just meander around and do the basic things that I knew that every gym bro does at some point, barbell bench, curls,
Bicep curls, yep.
Tricep push downs. I was doing all the very easy entry level stuff.
The big three.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't train legs for the longest time. Yeah, so I was stereotypical gym bro by definition.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was just kind of watching people, not in a weird way, but just watching to kind of, yeah, maybe a little bit. But no, that's how I met my girlfriend. Sorry. But
we're going to leave that in.
That's totally fine. And if she's watching this, absolute love of my life. And when people say things like the stars aligned perfectly, right? I truly believe in this manner they did. Because had I never removed myself from the sport of running and had I never had, these pre-existing injuries that were accelerated by running, I would have never met her, and
that's really cool.
A life without her, I can't imagine it.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things that when you find your person, you just, It
makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
It should. It makes your heart take a little dump. Yeah.
That's really nice.
Anyways, yeah, I'd watch the people in the gym to kind of accumulate more knowledge on how to do certain things, certain exercises.
I think the first time that well, I don't know if the first time I saw you, but for sure the first time we spoke was a fateful day. I was deadlifting with Christine, and I think we shared the platform.
Yeah.
Um, and you were about only as strong as Christine.
Yeah, I think less actually. That should be known.
To be fair to anybody, to you and to anybody else, compared to Christine, Christine's just really fucking strong.
Yeah, she's a beast.
She's unusual because she could just not lift for like many months and then come back to the gym and be the strongest person there.
It's crazy too, because I just made a comment saying that she was a beast, but I made that comment based off of that verbiage that you just used. I remember that day when we were all deadlifting, you had made a comment about how that was her first time back in the gym in a handful of months, and it absolutely shattered my world.
Classic Christine.
So yeah,
she just goes to the gym to humble men.
yeah.
But okay, so since then, I've seen you around the gym quite a lot, and actually, it's crazy to think that it's been that long, and kind of sneaky too. Because I mean, 4 years is short in the context of building up to competing in bodybuilding, but it's quite a long time in the context of like you making progress in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And you are at a point now where I do believe in the sport of natural bodybuilding, when you compete in this first season, I think you have a real chance of being competitive, even at the bigger shows. Winning is always a matter of like who else shows up. So
Right.
see, but it's pretty incredible that only maybe 4 years and some change in, you're already that far along.
Yeah.
So almost no matter what happens this season, as long as you enjoy competing, it'll be really cool to see where you take this years to come.
Yeah.
I would not be that surprised if you ended up being like really competitive in the sport overall. Like definitely, from what I've seen so far, like you work hard enough.
Right.
Great structure.
Thanks.
Figuring out the prep stuff, I think that you'll learn a lot going through this kind of on your own, and hopefully refine it every single time and get better and better. But we'll see.
Yeah.
So your training history, I guess, sports as a child, but then the first like serious endeavor into say fitness or competition was cross country track.
Correct. And that was by accident actually as well.
Really?
Yes. So I originally went out and tried out for the cross country team because it was alternating seasons with baseball. So I was going to run cross country to
stay in shape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More so just to keep myself busy.
Yeah.
I just wanted something to do that was outside.
Yeah.
So I was doing that in the off season. This was my freshman year of high school, the summer going into my freshman year of high school. I went out there and I was just running around with the team. And I remember towards the end of that first cross country season, my cross country coach came up to me. And it was funny because my mom was actually there as well. And we were discussing track tryouts. And my mom chipped in for me saying like, oh yeah, thank you, but we're going to decline. Like he's going to play baseball. And she was kind of chuckling and I'm like, yeah, like stand up for me, mom.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm doing. It's, and then he laughed and he looked at me eye to eye and he said, you're not playing baseball. He said, trust me. And I remember entertaining that conversation at a later date. And I asked him, like, how did you know that? He said, you were far too good of a runner to ever be playing baseball.
I thought he was going to say, you're really bad at baseball. Stop playing baseball.
So a mix of both. A mix of both. But yeah, no, as a freshman and sophomore in high school, I was outstanding as a runner. I think I matured a lot earlier than most people. So those first couple of years of high school, I was a lot faster than everybody else. Again, running, in my opinion, is a mental sport. If you're mentally tough, you can endure and handle it. If you're not, you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming you're figuring that out, on your own.
Dude, we'll talk about that offline maybe, but I think that for me, the obstacle is not, I'm in a place in my life where it's never going to be my brain. It's always, so far anyway, it's always been like, I don't have anything left. Like my fitness isn't there yet, or like I'm not healthy enough that day to give more. But I could definitely imagine for a lot of people at a certain level of competition, especially, it's like really just like how bad do you want it? And I think that you'll see in bodybuilding as well, there is a point where like, yeah, that matters a lot. But when you get to like the natural pro level, it's not anymore. Like everybody's so good.
Yeah.
Everybody wants it like as bad as you possibly can. And a lot of times the people who win shows at the highest level of bodybuilding, it's not even like who is it is who's the best, but the way they kind of pick that apart, it's more like, what are everybody's worst weak points?
Yeah.
And who has like the least detrimental components that day of the show, right? Because and they have to do it that way because everybody's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing where I think I would say like up to a fairly high level of competition, it really is just like how bad do you want it? You can make that work.
Mm-hmm.
Past a certain point though, it's like you have to have that. Like that's a grant. Like you have to have that as like a bare minimum. But you also need to be like really talented. You need to be extremely hardworking and either really well coached, or you have to have enough understanding what you're trying to accomplish that you can approach that in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
But all the pieces have to be there, right?
Right. Right. And that's another weird thing too, right? Because I'm coming from a sport where the background is heavily reliant on how willing are you to suffer mentally. Whereas when you get into a sport like bodybuilding, genetics play a very crucial role in how you perform. It's one of those things where genetics, don't get me wrong, they do play a role in running. You know, there are some aids that you can have on your side in terms of genetics.
Yeah.
But
and if like you're really short, it's gonna be tough to be good at the sport.
Yeah. But at the same time, you know, you can get extremely good at running with very bad genetics. Like you can be a world-class runner with horrible genetics.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to that point of like, how much are you willing to suffer mentally? How big of a hole are you willing to dig yourself into? And I got very comfortable with familiarizing myself with how far I was willing to push that limit.
Yeah.
And
that's useful now, right?
100%.
Yeah.
But it definitely is a different battle, right? So when you're talking about something like running, in terms of the mental aspect of it, not necessarily the physical performance itself, but when you're looking at the mental side of running, at the longest possible time, for me at least, because I specialized in mostly the half mile. So I was suffering for about 2 minutes or less.
Yeah.
At any given moment.
Yeah.
It's not a long time to suffer. You know what I mean? Whereas with bodybuilding, it's like,
that's a really fast half mile though. Just if anybody's trying to do math in their head, you're running like 4-minute mile pace, less than that.
Yeah. And I wasn't the best by any margin.
It's crazy watching some of the kids now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they're freaks. So to put it into perspective, when I think I had just turned 15, I ran 156 for a half mile.
Wow.
And that's when I knew I was gifted.
Yeah.
not to like brag, but from a legitimate standpoint.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the best training. I had no education on my nutrition whatsoever. I was young, just eating anything I wanted. Like eating a pound of gummy Lifesavers and a bag of hot Cheetos the day before track meet. And then I would run something like that.
They're like falling out of your pocket as you're running too.
Yeah, exactly. So that was something that was very interesting to me. And it kind of made me have some type of self-reflection in terms of, okay, this sport is as hard as you make it, right? So you can push yourself almost infinitely with running before your body will actually quit.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of, okay, well, like next week I'm going to do this, but 5 seconds faster per mile, right?
Yeah.
Or 2 seconds faster per mile. Small steps lead to big steps. You know, you take 3 small steps in the right direction.
Yeah.
You're now a minute faster per mile for any given distance.
What was the longest distance you were running? Either in training
competitively or training?
Either.
So training, I think it would have been a little under 18 miles. I remember the day. It was like 17 some change.
Yeah.
I personally never ran more than 17 on a consistent basis. And typically my long runs, every Sunday, long run day was 15. I usually wouldn't do more than that. Every now and then, because I didn't want to run back by myself, I would just run the extra mile out with the rest of my team.
Yeah.
Because running 7.5 miles back by yourself on a dirt canal is not a fun time. That's where you build mental discipline, though.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. So yeah, about 15 to 17 miles, I'd say, was like
that's a lot.
Furthest I'd run. Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah. Especially if you're specializing in like a shorter distance.
Yeah. And our coach in college was very big on miles make champions. That's his whole motto. And if by whatever stroke of luck he sees this podcast, he is going to smile from ear to ear hearing that I said that. But no, he knew his stuff.
Yeah.
He knew everything that you had to put into it in terms of physicality. When it came to nutrition, I think he lacked a little bit of the education there, but you don't know what you
There's a
don't
lot
know.
of gaps. So I mean, whether it was him or anybody else's coach for anything else, there's not a lot that was like
Exactly.
even the fact that we've learned so much. Like a lot of like the research come out in the past like decade or even 2 decades. It's not what I would have seen in like textbooks when I was in school. That was a long time ago that I was in school, but it's just yeah, there's so much left to learn.
Mhm.
What was the transition like? So running competitively through your time in college, and then past that, what did that exit look like for you?
It was very abrupt. So again, I know I mentioned earlier, COVID kind of accelerated my finish line for
Yeah,
running. Unfortunately, it was, kind of a rough end, and I was one of the few that was trying to push through the end of COVID.
yeah,
Um, I didn't push very well, I guess it's subjective to who you ask.
sure.
So I continued to try for about a year and a half after COVID first happened, or the first announcement of it came to
Mhm.
be. I pushed for about another year and a half before throwing in the towel, realizing that that's not what I want to do with my life anymore. I was starting to I picked up a minor in college to continue to
Kinda
have
continue
units and classes to take
so you
so I
extend your
could.
competitive time, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah,
Because what the NCAA did was they refunded us that season that they took from us. So as long as you were still a part-time student, they
yeah,
allowed you to, redeem that season at a later date. And towards the end of 2021, I was holding out for the track season of that year. And when they announced that that wasn't going to happen at the same capacity that it initially was, I
yeah,
just, like I said earlier, I removed myself from the sport.
yeah,
I was in so much pain and agony all the time, just from existing injuries, things that were lingering from years prior, something genetically. There's
yeah.
a lot of injuries that I was fighting to stay at that level of competitiveness with running.
Do you think that injuries of the sort are almost an inevitability at that level of competition?
Some yes, some no. So, for example, the biggest one on my end was something related to my hip. So genetically, I have one hip socket that is normal in the shape of a ball where the
Mhm.
joint sits and moves perfectly. And the other one I have is squared off on one of the sides. So when the
Yeah,
ball joint moves specifically back and forth in a running motion, it tears away at the cartilage.
nice.
And I didn't know that for the longest time, and I would no, and it's funny looking back at it, right? Because I would wake up and I would literally wake up at like 3 in the morning, not crying, but on the verge of
Yeah,
because
yeah,
my
yeah,
leg would just be in so much pain. I would have a burning sensation from the top of my groin almost to like, the midsection of my thigh.
yeah,
And it would wake me up in the middle of the night. And I was in a very unpleasant state of mind. But at the
of course.
time, you're just thinking, whoa, this is just another mental battle. So you're like, if I
Right.
can get up and move around, if once I warm up, it kind of loosens up, I'm good to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit tricky because I think that having that mental capacity to kind of just carry yourself through the discomfort or pain,
Mhm.
that there's a lot of utility to having that capacity, and not just in competition or training, but just everywhere in life. But also having developed that capacity, it becomes tricky to know when it's not appropriate. And I think that's something that you're probably learning, and we'll dig into like going through your prep. Uh, there's there's definitely wrong times to be using that. There's many wrong times to be using
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Um, so basically, injury plus COVID, and the season's not going the way you wanted them to, or honestly were promised that they would.
yeah.
Kind of led to the end of your running career. Got into the gym, started lifting. What got you from there to wanting to compete in bodybuilding? That wasn't actually
Um,
that. That was pretty recent, wasn't it?
it was pretty recent that I thought that I was in like right physical state to pull the
Sure.
trigger on something like that.
Yeah. I
But
will say, and like, because the people listening or watching, if you're listening, you can't see them. If you're watching, you can't know this, but you grew like rapidly from the time that I met you to like
yeah,
where you are now. You built a ton of fucking muscle.
thank you.
I'll have to edit that out, but yeah, a lot of muscle.
Yeah, thank you. Um, so when I originally got into lifting, I don't know necessarily what it was that allowed me to do that. But I was very keen on not missing any days, not missing any meals from the gun, right?
Yeah.
So even though I knew very, very little about the industry itself,
Mm.
I knew more so about the nutrition aspect of things. So I knew what
Yeah.
needed to be done in the kitchen to see the results in the gym.
And you're at least consistent.
Very
Yeah.
consistent. So at that time in my life too, I was just I had just graduated from college. So I kind of had, it was a filler episode
Yeah.
of my life where there was a brief handful of months where I wasn't working yet and I had just graduated, so I was still job searching.
Yeah.
And during that time I had no real outlet for anything. So that's when I started going to the gym and I picked it up at a relatively quick capacity.
Yeah.
But no, I knew all the ins and outs of what I needed to do in the kitchen. So it was just applying it in the gym. And that's where people like yourself or Taj came to my rescue.
Yeah.
And could not have learned any more from the two of you on those early entry level gym days. And I'm sure there's still a ton that I can learn from the both of you, and it's just crazy to think about, where you started versus where you're at now. Like, I think when the very first time I walked in that gym, I was weighing like $140, and because you come from this whole dynamic of running.
What are you saying?
Currently sitting at this table, 178.
On the way down, stage weight probably like 160 something.
I would assume high 160s, mid 160s. Yeah. Okay. So I've got another 12-ish pounds. Hopefully,
you're like 5'5".
10 of it are fat. Yeah.
I saw you actually
5'9".
5'9".
Yeah, most average height in America.
But yeah, I mean that's a good point. And for people listening, maybe a good takeaway is that whatever gaps in knowledge exist for you. So let's say knowledge is here. This is only helpful for people watching, but knowledge is here. Your consistency was always from the get. It was all the way up there. You're always consistent. And I think that a lot of people spend a ton of time and effort trying to figure out what is the best training program, what is the best diet, and so on. And that's good. You should do that. But yeah, I think that the consistency being that high from the get-go is really important. A lot of people make the mistake of like spending so much time, like they delay their start looking for some perfect program, perfect diet, and they never, for one, they don't start, or when they do, they're just not consistent. And that consistency, even with a subpar setup, would have taken them a lot further. And for you, having already figured out the consistency, I think there are going to be people who look at you and think to themselves, oh, must be nice, like he was just very gifted. That may be true to some limited extent, but I don't think it's as true as many people will believe it to be. I think a lot of it was just that when you started, you'd already figured out all the mental strategy to, what was that? Oh, I know what that is. Never mind. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
You'd already figured out all the mental strategy required to be consistent with your approach. So your progress was never limited by, how often are you showing up to the gym? How consistently are you eating enough food? You kind of just got to that point, and then since then have refined your approach, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So we know that you are going to compete. Is it the Sacramento Mayhem?
Yeah, the Muscle Mayhem, November 7th.
Okay, November 7th. How many weeks out are we?
Just under 15, or no, just almost 14. Yeah.
14 weeks out as of today.
My days are all jumbled now.
Okay, so 14 weeks out. At the time of recording, I'm 14 weeks out. How much weight do you think you still have to lose to get stage lean?
To where I want to be, I would say that about a pound a week till the end would suffice. Okay. I want to do it a little bit quicker than that to give myself a little bit of time to figure out one of two things, which actually came from you, the advice. First thing being, am I lean enough? If not, I need to go a little bit harder for these last 3 weeks. Or if I do decide that I'm lean enough, it becomes time of maintaining that level of leanness and filling out come show day.
So sorry, just to be clear, you have 15-ish pounds left to lose?
Correct.
Okay. And you're planning on doing that over the course of 15 weeks?
Correct.
Have you accounted for time to peak for your show?
I haven't.
You should.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll circle back to that. So we know how much weight you have left to lose roughly. If you have pictures of yourself from like this week, I might throw it up onto the video version of this.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that separately too. Do you have just the one show on schedule, or are you going to do multiple shows?
Just the one for now.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think you should do more than one.
Yeah.
Mostly because it's so much work to get ready. And that's near the end of the season. If you do reasonably well as I think you will, you'll probably qualify for Worlds. I think Worlds this year are either in LA or Vegas. which is close enough, but you have to travel, but like not that far. And
just pack 6 packs of rice cakes. I'll be all right.
But I mean, it's cool. Like I think that a lot of my athletes who qualify for world, I encourage them to compete there because you get to see the highest level of natural bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And just to know that that exists and to see it in real life, that's very different than looking at pictures online. And it's, I mean, to some people, they do that. They see that and they're kind of maybe demoralized. Oh my God, there's so much work left to be done. On the other hand, though, it's also kind of cool because you see these guys and these girls and you think to yourself, like, shit, I could do this forever.
Yeah.
And maybe if I am lucky enough and I work hard enough, I could maybe approach that level, right?
Right.
Like most of us mere mortals might have that thought. But yeah, I mean, it's look, my first season in competition, I competed 3 times. And I don't regret that. I think I did stifle my growth a little because I was pretty young, but just having the experience, it's like a separate skill to build, right? To compete, like getting ready on the day of the show or handling yourself on the day of the show. Separate skill. So it might make sense strategically to compete more than once, but also just given the amount of work you put in through a prep to compete just once. It'd be an exaggeration to call it wasteful, but it's maybe like a little bit wasteful.
Yeah.
Do you think that you might consider competing more than once this season?
There's a possibility. Yeah. In the event that I do happen to be lucky enough or fortunate enough to qualify for an additional show, I would.
I think you'd only have to place at the Mayhem to qualify for Worlds.
I could see myself doing that then, competing in Worlds. The funny thing about you mentioning like seeing these people get on stage at that capacity, they're essentially have devoted a better part of their entire life to this one cause and sport.
Yeah.
Weird obsession. Totally cool. I get it. I have the same one, right? But a lot of my posing practice has been done in front of the TV with YouTube callouts from the natural worlds competitions. Really smart. And I look at those guys and I picture myself, as stupid as this may sound to people who don't have the same level of, envisionment, but I picture myself up there with them. And every call out is now my call out as well.
Yeah.
I can't remember who I initially heard suggest doing something like that, but when I did, I want to say 80% of my posing is done in that fashion.
Are you using a video from like WNBF Worlds?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I will say that's super important for people watching. If you use the same strategy, it's very smart, but it's really important that you're specific to the federation you're competing in, because the way they call out poses, the order of the poses themselves even are different from one federation to the next.
Yeah.
But the WNBF Worlds, especially if you find one of the more competitive classes where they're up there for, say, 25 minutes, half an hour, that's a good place to start.
It's a pretty lengthy video.
Yeah, because if you can do that and you can keep your composure and pose well for that long, it's more than likely at like your first show. The Mayhem's a big show, but it's more than likely you won't have to be on stage for half an hour. I remember when I first got into it, Bob Bell and Tina Smith, now the owners and presidents of the WNBF, they are the ones actually who taught me to pose. They had like a clinic they would put on. And I went there so unprepared. It was an hour and a half with one break. And like we were posing the entire time.
Yeah.
And their whole thing was like, if you can do this, then there's no chance you're going to gas out on stage. And they're right. So after that, I've always taken that to heart. And like when I would practice posing, it would be really, really long, like unnecessarily long sessions.
Yeah.
But then that's because I knew on stage, even in the summer shows when it's like hot, I'm not going to sweat through my tan. I'm not going to be like, like really breathing hard on stage. I'll be able to maintain my composure because I've done the same thing for much longer than necessary. But yeah, I think that's a super good strategy.
Yeah.
What would you say are your goals for this first season?
To have fun. It sounds super stupid.
It's a good goal though.
But yeah, there was a certain point in time in college specifically where I lost myself a little in terms of like mental durability. I was always comparing myself to other people. So, in college you're running against, top percentile of runners in the world. It's
really, really tangible though, like in like cross country. Because everything, no matter what your time is, it's a race.
Yeah.
Right? It's like first, second, third. It's very obvious. Same thing is going to be true in bodybuilding. It's very obvious who won.
Yeah.
Whereas like there are other things in say you run a marathon,
Mhm.
you're not supposed to win. Like there are
Yeah.
very few people who even think that they're in the running to win a marathon. So like when people finish a marathon, they feel great about it, like almost regardless of their time. Most people. That's very different though. And like I think for you, your experience in competing in college through high school and college, it's very much like you're first, second, third, you're like Ricky Bobby,
Yeah.
right? If you're not
Yeah.
first.
You're last. Yeah. And I remember it very vividly, like competing at a high level, you run a PR, right? And then you turn around and you look at how many people were behind you, and it's like maybe one,
Yeah.
two,
Yeah.
and you immediately start to kick yourself before you even give yourself the gratitude of or
Right.
feeling of accomplishment for running a best time for your life,
Yeah.
And I think that was something that kind of detached me from the sport for a brief period of time during my collegiate career.
Yeah.
And that is something that I had to kind of navigate around. So when I reapproached the sport, I came into the next season with the mindset of I'm doing this for me, strictly for me. I do not care what other people think, what other people say, what my coach thinks, what my coach says.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm taking everything he's giving me and doing it and applying his knowledge. But I was no longer doing it for other people or to see how I would par up against others.
Yeah.
I was doing it for myself. So it was okay, like, did that run feel good? Yes, great. No, why not? Fix it.
Yeah.
And it was no longer, okay, who did I beat today? Or like, you're doing a maintenance run.
Yeah.
And you end the maintenance run, running a 5-minute mile because your buddy decided to one step you the entire way back to the school, right? Yes, I'm talking to you, Oscar. But no, so there are things like that, right? And let's say you didn't win the maintenance run day, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'd kick myself for that back in the day. But now it's like, okay, well, I had fun doing that. So that's the approach I want to bring to the bodybuilding stage is I want to go up there knowing two things. One, that I brought the absolute best package that I could have with the knowledge and resources that I do have. And two, to just have fun.
I like that you add the qualifications there too, because to say that you brought the absolute best, just so you know this, and anybody else getting into competition, that's never going to be true.
Oh, never.
It's just not.
It'll be far from it.
And if ever you got to a point where it was true, it's like, I guess you beat the game.
Yeah,
right?
you're winning.
Are you going to continue? It's like, I don't know the last time I played a real video game. It was probably like GameCube days. But back then, video games were different. Like it's basically there's like a story or like a campaign mode, right? And you finish it and it's like, well, there's nothing left.
Right.
I don't think that's a good feeling.
No.
And I think especially in something like natural bodybuilding, it's such a slow push that the appeal of that to probably you, me, and like so many other people is that you kind of can't beat the game, right?
Yeah.
There's actually guys like Martin Daniels. I'm drawing a blank. I'll look up some names, but Martin Daniels is a good example where he was winning shows, like not in masters or grandmasters. He was winning open pros when he was like in his late 50s. And he's just shitting on guys who are like 20 something, 30 years old.
Yeah.
Because he's had decades to build muscle and to get better at the craft, right? So it's really cool that you even are able to do that. But do you think though, is there no part of you that, let's say you were competing at Mayhem? I don't know if you're going to go novice or open, but let's just say you were novice. Would you be disappointed if you placed last?
No.
No.
Not if I had fun. If I get up there and do everything that I need to do and it goes the way that I think it's going to go.
Just say you also wouldn't place last.
Yeah.
I promise you that, but yeah.
In a world where I did, I think me 3 or 4 years ago would have been very disappointed.
Yeah.
And I would have drove home in silence listening to the air conditioning. But I think me standing here or sitting here
Blast the
today
heat to punish yourself.
Yeah, no, exactly right. There's no fun meal after that, right? Like I wouldn't have been eating donuts right after, like I genuinely would have tried to destroy my body further had I placed last about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep.
That's kind of the state of mind where I was in. It was if I'm not winning, I need to discipline myself further.
That's tough.
And I'm glad I'm away from that now. So in today, me sitting here today, if I placed dead last, I'd probably do so with a smile on my face because I had the opportunity to do it. A lot of people don't.
That's true. Yeah, it's definitely a privilege to be able to devote that much time and energy to something
100%.
So bizarre, so silly.
Yeah.
So your goal really is just to enjoy competing.
Enjoy the experience. Yeah.
And do essentially give yourself or set a bar for yourself as to what the current best is. So I'm assuming you're going to compete again. I can almost guarantee you're going to compete again.
I would want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would hope I am fortunate enough to do so.
So, I mean, your goal is pretty straightforward there. Take me through your approach. Start with your training, and then we'll come back to your diet.
So what about the training?
What does your training look like?
So currently Mondays, cardio day, maybe some light core, depending on how tired I am after doing cardio.
Okay.
The cardio, keep in mind, is never extensive cardio. I'm no longer doing cardio how I used to do it.
Yeah.
All my cardio now is done in like zone 2.
Yeah.
Which is very weird for me. Somebody who transitions from a sport like cross country and track, you're usually working in zone 4.
Really?
And yes.
Like most of your volume zone 4?
For a majority of the shorter races, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the majority of volume is probably upper zone 3.
Okay.
Yeah. But like for speed workout, yeah, like mid high zone.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So transitioning from something like that, going into, your cardio days being very light, maybe a little bit of core here and there.
Okay.
And then Tuesdays through Thursdays, I actually weightlift. So it's a variation of push-pull legs.
Backpedal a second. How much cardio right now?
Right now, I'm doing 15-minute sessions on Mondays, and then on Fridays, I'm doing about 25 to 30.
So like almost
done. How I go into it. Yeah.
No, I think that's great. That's a good place to be for now. Yeah. In case you need it later on.
I think so too. Yeah. I don't want to go into explaining that or have you go into explaining it. I need to gatekeep it for myself.
Okay.
Kidding. It's just the way your metabolism works. Google it. Your heart works harder when you're less fit.
Yeah. It's a funny recommendation to make though to somebody because
100%.
It's almost like you're recommending like be in poor cardiorespiratory shape so that when we prescribe cardio, it's more effective.
Yeah.
So it's not a thing that for the normal people watching this or listening, it's not a thing that I'd recommend for your general health. It is something very specific for somebody who might struggle to go through a long bodybuilding prep, right?
Yes.
And then your resistance training. Talk me through that.
Yeah, so that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's a variation of push-pull legs. My push and pull are a little different in a matter of when I do push for chest and shoulders, I will train biceps rather than triceps.
Okay.
And on my pull days, the same, but with triceps. So I'll do back and tris.
I think that makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree. That's why I'm doing it. And then Thursdays, I have a leg day, which has heavy emphasis on quads. So that was today. And then Fridays, again, it's the little bit longer session of cardio. And on the Fridays, I won't do core. So Mondays are my lighter cardio session with core. Fridays, I won't do the core, longer cardio. And then Saturday, Sunday is upper lower.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're training every day?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. Was that the same or how different is your training right now, close-ish to competition versus off-season?
It's a lot more methodical. I feel as if this is going to sound corny to anybody listening who isn't involved in this world, but I almost feel like I'm an artist now rather than a gym bro going in there pumping iron.
The sculptor analogy, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I know that's used, way overused in the industry, but I do feel it to a degree.
Yeah.
Keeping that same tempo, the slow eccentrics and making sure that everything is dialed. You're in the muscle. It's such a weird thing to say, but you're in the muscle on every rep of every set. That has become a lot more apparent to me versus when I was in my off season. So all of my lifting prior to this was more so me kind of just throwing around as much weight as I could for reps.
Okay.
But yeah, in this prep, I've slowed down my approach to it.
Did you think in your off season? Did you think that was like kind of just throwing around more weight, being less methodical? Did you think that was the best approach then, or did you?
No, okay. I knew it wasn't the best approach, and I still continue to do it because it made me feel good.
Okay.
I know a lot of people could probably relate to that.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I knew for a fact it perfect example of something like squatting, right? An exercise that probably should be slower and more methodical because there's a lot of injury risk involved with the movement, like back squat.
Yeah.
And for nobody would ever have any way of knowing this about me unless they've seen me squat because of my pre-existing injuries with my
You
hip.
squat kind of funny, yeah.
I squat extremely narrow.
Yeah.
My feet are almost touching. My heels are probably 2-3 inches apart. Um,
Yeah.
so my squats are very, very heavy on the quads. So when I was squatting in my peak during off season, I was, squatting a lot of weight, but doing it like 8 to 10 times.
Mm.
And people are coming over like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And to me, it was just such a like, ego boost going into that next set, knowing that, okay, like I just did this 8 or 9 times. This time I'm doing 10,
Yeah.
you know? And I know that that's not the best approach to building muscle. Anytime I was doing a set of heavy squats, it was almost always to failure.
I remember seeing you do that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you've ever been in the gym with
Yeah.
me while I'm doing legs, you've heard me do that. I'm in the corner screaming, and then all of a sudden you hear the barbell fly off and hit the safeties. Yeah, so I'm the gym tool when I'm in peak off season. But starting the prep, I actually removed squatting heavy from my routine altogether.
Okay.
More so because it was just too taxing on my nervous system more than anything else. So I started to feel it when, like, days after squatting, I would feel the squatting, but in a weird sense, like more so in my head and like in my general body.
Mm.
I know it's gonna sound weird, but like, you can kind of feel when you're about to get sick.
Yeah.
I would almost feel like that after very heavy squat days. So I knew that was something that I was probably going to have to dial back by a good amount.
As much as I love squatting myself, I do think there's a lot of people who, like, if you're just bodybuilding, you have no aspirations to compete in like a strength sport or a sport that requires you to barbell squat. Squatting well is very difficult to do consistently. So, like for you and for a lot of pure bodybuilders, I think doing something like, let's say, a machine hack squat, where it's a very similar movement, but it's really easy to adjust your setup before you accept load. Like make sure everything's correctly how you want it, and then start your set. Like a barbell back squat, it's kind of tricky to do that and to maintain that through the entire set because there's no point in which you could be fully unloaded in a barbell squat. Like you have to just be like switched on the entire time. But yeah, I think that makes a little bit of sense. Do you think that you'll keep some of those modifications in terms of like both your execution, maybe movement selection going into your next off season?
No. Um, I just love squatting too much. I'm one of those weirdos that thinks it's like the bread and butter.
Yeah.
At least during an off season, right?
Sure.
So something that you mentioned, switching something like a hack squat or Smith machine tempo squat,
Yeah.
Those are a little more my speed right now. Because you're just standing up. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of in place, more or less. Everything else is in place for you, and all you have to do now is stand.
Yeah.
And push against the floor as hard as you can. Whereas with the squat, like you mentioned, if you're 1 degree of lean too far one way or another, it's not going to go well.
Well, I think something for you to think about is, the goal of your training in off season is essentially the same as your goal in training when you're in prep.
Mhm.
It's just that the requirements are a little bit different. So the goal, to be clear, the goal should be stimulating muscular growth, that growth response.
Right.
You probably won't grow in your diet down, but that same response is how you'll hold on to muscle,
Mhm.
right? So if the goal is the same, really the approach to getting there is probably going to be very similar. So just something for you to think about is however is best in the off season is probably very close to what's going to be best during your diet down. The
Mhm.
only real difference there is going to be the amount of volume required because you can't grow or you are very unlikely to grow muscle on the way down. You just
Right.
don't need as much volume to maintain what you've got. So if you do start chopping volume down because you just don't have the energy for it deep into your prep, that's occasionally appropriate. The other thing that you might consider making some changes for is just if, like a lot of my guys and girls that I coach for competing in physique sports, they don't really make changes in their exercise selection unless or until they're very close to a show where all of maybe like the outside stressors associated makes it hard for them to focus in the gym. And it would be
Mhm.
otherwise maybe more dangerous to continue barbell squatting, right? But if they got really jacked doing the barbell squat. That's been one of their bread and butter lifts. I probably wouldn't change it.
Mhm.
And same for you. Like you might consider, if nothing else, it does simplify your approach to just be like, okay, this is how I'm going to get big in my off season. This is also, I'm going to hold on to that while I'm getting ready for my show season.
Right.
Minimizing that change, I think it's boring, but it's also very useful, and more likely to be more correct than making more changes just because you're dieting down.
Right.
Your training, though, I think for the most part, a lot of the approach makes sense. Like the frequency that you get going, basically legs, push, pull, upper, lower throughout an entire week, you basically hit every muscle group at least twice if you wanted to.
Correct.
So you can spread the volume out in a way that's very recoverable. The cardio thing makes a lot of sense. Like you're only doing as much as you need right now. And you've given yourself a lot of leeway where if you need to like step on the gas later on to do more cardio, burn more calories, you could certainly do so. What about your diet? How's that looking right now?
So the diet right now is
Actually, can you start me? Body weight at the moment, like morning weight is what?
177, 178
Okay.
right now.
And we're aiming for like say 162-ish at your lowest low, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, then talk me through the diet.
Yeah. So that well, do you want me to talk you through just from when I started prep, or do you want me to start from the beginning? Like when I initially got into the gym and
tell me where you're at right now first.
Okay. So right now, like macro splits.
Yeah, are you tracking?
I mean, I track them very loosely, the split percentages of what everything should be.
Okay.
So right now,
tell me absolute numbers.
Okay. So my calories a day, I think, are just under 2,400. So it's like 2,386.
Okay.
You
sure it's not 2,387? I'm just kidding.
We can check right now. I can pull it out. I've been doing a lot of relying on the app itself to give me the not give me the numbers,
How do you
but
track?
Like to keep track of it. Carb Manager.
Carb Manager. Okay.
Yeah. So I used MyFitnessPal for the longest time actually, and then they removed the feature of scanning the barcode.
No, and they hid it behind a paywall.
They did, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I should have specified. They didn't remove it, but yeah, they locked it behind paywall, and I got so sad.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did was go to Google and figure out which ones had it for free, and Carb Manager was one that did.
Okay.
So I've been using that, and I've had no issues with it. But yeah, no. So calories are 2,386 a day right now. They've been at that for a good portion of month now.
Okay.
Outside of that, fats, I rarely go over 40 grams a day now.
Wow. Okay.
All essential fats, the runoff from like, I don't know, almond milk or like a scoop of protein powder, they can't remove. With like whey isolate, there's still like 0.5 grams of fat in it.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of runoff, but still I sit about 40, maybe 50 on like a day where I'm just really dragging.
Yeah.
And then carbs, more or less, 20 grams plus my current body weight. So I'm sitting around 200 grams of carbs a day. And then the remainder of the macros just get thrown into protein.
That's a lot of protein, isn't it?
Yeah.
How many grams?
It's like 240.
It's a lot.
More than I need.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's not a terrible strategy though, to keep yourself full, because you're not as likely to store body fat for sure, but just gain body mass from protein as much as you'd expect based on the calorie content compared to carbs and fats.
Mm-hmm.
So that's maybe a useful strategy. But yeah, that is a lot of protein.
Yeah. I mean, I have very expensive pee now. So that's all it is.
How often are you adjusting your food?
Usually about every 3 or 4 pounds lost.
Okay.
So I would say about every month.
How big of a drop are you making?
Very minimal drops, because the rate that I'm currently losing, I consider quickly enough to the degree that I want. So I have in my mind, around start of October, I'll be where I want to be.
Yeah.
Which again, as we mentioned earlier, leaves me with making one of those two decisions. So I think that if I'm on pace to hit that by that day, the drops that I'm currently making are fine.
So are you projecting? You're projecting future adjustments off of past adjustments?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So I can see a world where in about 3 weeks from now, or 4 weeks from now, I'm probably sitting at like 22 and some change a day rather than 2,386.
I can't know this to be true, but I'd be willing to bet that math is wrong. you're probably not going to be able to project future adjustments off of past adjustments as you continue to get leaner,
Mhm.
just because it's going to be much harder to continue to lose fat as you get leaner and leaner, right?
Right, right.
Um,
So you
something
think the adjustments will be even more minute than the prior ones?
Well, I would recommend to you, and I would have had you do this earlier, rather than making like a large, relatively say large drop once a month, I would rather see you do two smaller ones twice a month. Or
Mm,
if you have enough,
got you.
if you have the ability to like stare at your data and be like very objective, you might even do it like once a week.
Yeah.
Most of the time when I'm coaching people for prep, we're gonna adjust once a week, maybe half weeks. And that's not to say that I'm adjusting off of 3 days of data. It's not that. We're tracking trends over time and we're kind of like meeting out those adjustments in really tiny increments
Mhm.
so that it doesn't feel like they're doing anything.
Right.
Right? Because if you make a 400 cal drop, you'll feel that on a day-to-day
Oh, yeah.
basis.
Yeah.
If you make a 50 calorie drop, you don't even know. It's like not even part of a bite of rice,
Yeah.
right? So I think that some of that strategy, but a lot of that could help on the long term, avoiding the, especially when you're doing it yourself, avoiding the want to adjust too aggressively.
Mhm.
Most of the times when people are coaching themselves or kind of dieting themselves down, they get a little antsy and they like chop the numbers down further because they're not sure if they're losing fast enough.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think maybe more frequent, smaller adjustments, if you are able to do that with the data you're tracking, would be wise. And it would probably have you hold your food a little higher all the way through.
Yeah.
But just, be mindful that deeper into your prep as you are leaner and leaner, it's just going to be harder. Like the amount of adjustment you have to make per, you know, say fraction of a pound of fat loss is just going to be greater.
Yeah.
Your body really doesn't want you to be that lean. So you have to
Yeah.
fight it a
Yeah.
little bit.
That's okay. I've been fighting my body my whole life.
But I mean, if you're so 23, 2400-ish now, I mean, the total calories aside, the carbs and fats being that low, you have space certainly to adjust, but not a ton. Do
Mhm.
you worry at all about like where you're going to pull from as you get closer and closer?
No, not necessarily. I just thought of something funny actually. But I'll tell you offline. Um, so I don't necessarily have fear of it. And again, I've never been this lean in my life. Not as of right now. I mean, like future.
You've never been as lean as you're going to be when you're on stage.
Correct. So I do have a lot of familiarity with functioning at a very high capacity on very minimal food intake. That was kind of our motto back in college, was the lighter you are, the faster you can run for a long period of time,
Yeah.
which holds some truth, but there is a middle ground. It is possible
For sure,
to be
yeah.
too light because then you no longer have energy to function.
Yeah.
So there were days in college where I was eating probably about 1,000 calories and going on like a 15-mile run.
Oh man, I remember you telling me
So
this. Yeah.
yeah, there was one off season in particular where I showed up and I think I was high 150s, maybe 160 pounds.
Yeah.
And where I wanted to be was about high 140s. So I did 3 days where I ate nothing but fruits, just to kind of flush everything out of my system. At the time, I thought this was a great idea.
Yeah.
Preface this story with, I know now that this is a horrible idea.
Okay.
Please don't copy. So for about 3 days straight, I ate nothing but fruits, specifically grapes and watermelon. No reason for the choice of the two of those. I just thought they were the tastiest.
Smallest fruit, largest fruit.
Yeah. I just thought they were the tastiest. And over the course of those 3 days, I ran about 40 miles, a little bit under. And I remember on the very last day, it was our long run. So a bulk of my mileage came from that run. I think it was 13 or 14 miles that day. I don't remember specifically. And I remember it was in Mammoth Lakes and I was coming around one of the last turns. It was about half a mile left till I got to the parking lot and could sit down and finally eat something worth eating. My body started to give up.
Oh man.
So it went from running about, 8-minute miles to like 12-minute miles to
God, that's rough.
walk jogging
Yeah.
to somebody asking me if I needed help getting back to the parking lot.
Yeah.
And my body was literally just depleted of absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And in that 3-day period, I was not restricting water intake at all. So I know for a fact, it wasn't from, all the water loss, but I went from 160 to 147 in that 3-day
Holy
period.
moly.
Yeah, very, very unhealthily. I was probably in like a negative, if I had to guess, 14,000 calorie deficit for that 3-day period. which is a lot, you know, and on
But
paper, that's about a little under 5 pounds, right?
the math doesn't math in real life, but
Yeah, I know, but
that is
it's
possible though because you were burning so many calories from training at that point.
yeah. And after I actually had food back in my body, I ended up leveling out at about 152, 153. So
Okay.
about 8 of those pounds were legitimate in the course
Yeah.
of 3 days. And mentally, to this day, that was the hardest 3 day period of my life. It was the feeling of hunger and getting up and going for a run to deal with the feeling of hunger. So just to keep myself busy rather than thinking
Yeah.
about food, I would go and run because thinking about running sucked more than thinking about food. Um, so any of the people that were, you know, fortunate enough to deal with me for that 3 day period knew that I was not a very happy person. I was very different than I am here talking to you today.
That's
But
probably one of those things where the principle maybe I think that principle is partly true, not entirely, but let's just pretend it were true. I think the execution of the principle was just entirely wrong in that case.
oh, and going into it, I knew that it was incorrect.
Where you are with your prep right now, you're like pretty far along. I think you're doing pretty well, but would you say is there anything you're having trouble with or that you're not sure about at this point?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I think the biggest thing that I am currently unsure about is it might sound dumb, but sweating through my tan because
Mm,
I run extremely hot.
yeah,
And even during those posing sessions that I was mentioning earlier, like by minute number 7 or 8, I'm already in a dead sweat.
sure.
I'm hoping that that stops once I start doing a little bit of cardio. Um,
It might not.
yeah, which is my fear. So I think that is one thing that I am probably hyper fixated on at the moment.
Yeah, so something that helps a lot with that. This is super niche, but hopefully valuable for somebody listening out there. You have options for your show day tan. You can either do it yourself or you can have it done by whoever the vendor is at your show.
Mm,
The show day vendors are usually pretty good, especially for the mayhem. I think I know which vendor it's going to be, and they're squared away. They do
right,
a good job. The only problem with that is the show day vendors. They're doing it on the day of. So you show up that morning, they apply your tan
right,
as early as they can, right? And they're gonna get the color right. The problem is if it was applied so recently and you start sweating, you'll sweat through it. Hands
right,
down, you will. And they can do touch-ups and stuff, but like the touch-ups really don't matter because prejudging is the only thing that's judged. Uh, so the advantages of doing whoever the vendor is that they're gonna get the color correct. They can adjust it based on the lighting. They can retouch it during the show if you want, but you're more likely to sweat through it.
mm,
Um, it's also one more thing to have to worry about on the day of.
right,
Doing it yourself, there is so many ways you can do it wrong, but I'll skip past a bunch of the wrong ways. What you should get is one of two products. This is not sponsored. They pay me nothing to say this, but either liquid sun rays or there's a product called Dark As.
uh,
Both of them they're like a mousse, like a foam kind of thing that you pump out onto like an applicator mitt, like a foam thing, like a foam mitt. Your girlfriend might know what that is. Like if she's ever used like fake tan.
yeah,
But you pump it on an applicator and just rub it in like lotion. And the nice thing about this is, I guess, a few things. One, it's way less messy than the old school like sprays or
mhm,
like the paint on kind of thing.
yeah,
It's way less messy than that. Two is that you can kind of adjust the color. So you would start doing this the day prior to your show. You would apply your first coat maybe like halfway through the day after, if you're going to train after your last training session, you'll shower, apply the first coat. And as it sits there, it kind of like, it gets a little bit darker. So you have some time to decide, okay, do I do another coat? And then again, darker. And it's kind of gross because you don't get to shower until after your show. But like morning of, you probably do like one more coat at most.
right.
Dark As is really dark. I know Arnold Weldon, he is pale, pale, like almost translucent pale. He did two coats and he was way darker than anybody on stage. So if you are super pale, you don't want to do a bunch of coats. Dark As is great. Liquid Sun Rays has more of a kind of like golden-ish color.
All right.
That's my favorite. It just requires a few more coats. But that's nice because it's almost like embedded into your skin in a way where if you do sweat, you're not sweating through. You'll still sweat, but it's not like going to create drips of tan onto the stage or off of your body on
Right.
stage. So that helps. The last thing that helps is having when you like they call it like posing oil or some people call it glaze. If you apply that, you just want to make sure like don't use Pam, don't use baby oil. It's way too thin. You want something
Yeah.
that's more viscous. the good stuff is almost like it's just gonna sound weird, like almost the consistency of like motor oil, like
I
which
was
is
just
super
gonna use
thick.
5W20.
But yeah, you want it to be thick enough where even if you do start sweating, it almost like mixes together with that, so it's not running.
Right.
You know, because what you don't want to see is like actual droplets of tan and oil, you know, dropping off your
Yeah.
body or like streaking across your body. So I mean, I think there's plenty of ways for you to work around that. It's just, do you want to try to handle it yourself and do it, you know, most of the day before, or do you want to have to like, do you want to rely on somebody else to do that? For most of my guys, I steer them toward doing it themselves because it's just more within your control.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of shows where the vendor is just not that good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a disaster. Like it costs a lot of money to pay them to do that. It costs way less to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And imagine paying the money to do that and to do your show and have the
tan runs off. Yeah.
This is like a bad experience all around.
Right. Yeah. I think that probably is my biggest fear at the current moment. I'm sure other things will come up as I get
your biggest fear is your tan. That's not a terrible problem then.
No, well, and the reason I say that is because I remember watching the Olympia this past year, C-Bum's final year, Classic Physique Olympia. I was watching him.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at Ramon on the stage, like he should have placed better than he did, but he didn't because he was literally dripping his tan off.
Yeah.
And like he was actively trying to.
There's nothing you can do at that point.
Yeah, but he's trying his best to like remedy the situation, and it's.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that did cost him, you know, being up there
one or two spots,
one of the
probably,
top threes. Yeah. And it's just very unfortunate. And when I saw that, I was like, that's going to be me because I sweat like crazy, you know? It's just one of those things where it's like, it probably only affects a select few, but
yeah,
I might be one of them.
If you're that concerned, I might even recommend that you do like a dry run, like if you're going to do it yourself, get your tanning products.
Right.
You'll look ridiculous for a day, but like apply
That's
it
fine.
And then go practice posing, like even like outside of your house at home, because it's gonna be hot.
Yeah.
Well, if you did it soon, it's gonna be hot.
Yeah.
And just see like how your body reacts and what the tan looks like after you've had it applied for a while and when it starts to run. So you'll know like kind of what to expect and maybe some of how you would deal with it if it did start to run.
Right.
But I do really think applying it early is gonna help a lot.
Okay.
It's like the coats that you lay down before, they're kind of just, they're embedded. They're not on top of your skin. A lot of the stuff when you see it start to run, it's just because it was just sprayed down like an hour ago.
Should I like sand before I apply so that way it sticks?
A lot of people do. They recommend exfoliation.
Oh, yeah, like actually?
I actually don't. I do the opposite. I would say like for the areas of your body that are like knees, elbows, face, like apply lotion if anything before because those areas, knuckles, hands,
typically darker.
They get way too dark. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So like you apply tan and they look black all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then the rest of you is just like a normal, like even tan color or golden color. That just looks weird.
Yeah. Wow, that's funny. I didn't know that was a thing. I just said that as a joke.
Yeah.
Like it's like before you stain wood, you're supposed to sand it so
But yeah, no, a lot of people do recommend exfoliation. I don't think that's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I just, for myself, I've learned that I look best if I like don't do that.
Right.
I, moisturize the spots that I think might become too dark. I would also, if you haven't thought about this or nobody told you, you should shave everything.
Yeah.
Even the places where you don't think you have hair, you still should.
Yeah.
Shout out to your girl because you need some help.
I haven't asked yet, so I'm thanking in advance, but yeah.
Yeah, dude, every bodybuilder's like partner, or I mean, if they have no partner, maybe their best friend, they're the MVP because somebody had to help them shave their back. Yeah. That's a tall task. Especially if you're like actually big. That's a large surface area to cover.
Yeah, what is it like if you're by yourself and you're that large? Do you just wall mount a razor and then do the bear method, or
they make these things that are like it looks like a shaver with an extra long handle.
Oh, it's like a back scratcher.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Okay. What's the market like on those? You think?
No idea. I've heard of guys trying to use like Nair, like rubbing it on their back and seeing if that removes the hair. Mixed degrees of success. I think the way to go really is to just make sure somebody else helps you.
Nair smells awful too.
I don't think I've ever tried it or used it.
But I used it on my legs. Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't sound fun.
No.
So really, like your only concern then coming up into your show is tan.
As of now, yes. More so because I feel fairly confident in the things that I do know approaching the show. I've done a lot of homework and research in my early years in lifting.
Yeah.
this might be cocky of me to say, but I think I know enough to get me to the finish line. Whether it will get me to the finish line at a very high level, I am uncertain.
Mm.
I will only know through experience.
What about your peak week?
So for peak week, I have no idea what I'm going to do yet. And as funny as that sounds, right? Like,
Yeah,
I've seen multiple examples of people demonstrating or explaining their peak week online.
sure.
Um, I just haven't necessarily found one that has convinced me enough to be like, okay, this is how I want to do it. There might be a couple factors from each of the peak weeks that I've seen explained that I might just combine and accumulate as my own.
Okay.
In all honesty, I wish I did have a better answer for you, but I really don't. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing currently is kind of just, I don't want to say on the fly. Like, I am prepared and I am having, like, each week planned out before it even happens.
But you're kind of
But
assuming that you're going to learn from whatever you experiment with. Yeah, I get that.
exactly. That's the whole thing too. That's why I always preface it with, like, I'm entry level, not to use it as an excuse when I do horribly. But no, I like to say entry level just because I'm getting into it as a hobby, right?
Sure.
It will turn into a lifestyle. I know that for a fact. It already has to
Yeah.
some degree. But again, like, this isn't how I'm feeding my family, right? So I don't need it to be 100% perfect or as close to perfect as possible. Perfect doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I think I'll have a general idea of how I'm going to do it and approach it probably come the next couple weeks. But if you had any suggestions, I'm all ears.
I'll give you like a simplified couple of like options that would be maybe a good starting point for you. So you understand the goal of your peak week is to take you from this point of the bottom of your diet down
Mhm.
when you're most depleted. So you are going to be the leanest there. So when I say leanest, I specifically mean that you have the least fat mass that you ever will
Right.
during your prep. But you also, kind of as a result of having had food and carbs specifically low for so long, have the least glycogen stored and associated water. And for perspective, however interesting or boring this is for everybody, literature average male is 160 pounds untrained, holds about, say, 6.5, 7 pounds total of intramuscular glycogen and water. That's a lot by volume. That's a ton of space, right?
Mhm.
And you are not an average male. You're significantly more muscular. Even if you end up, let's say, close to 160, you will still have way more muscle than an untrained male. So just pretend we could know. We can't, but let's pretend we were in the range of 8 to 9.5 pounds of possible peak stored intramuscular glycogen and water. That is so much muscle volume, right? So what we want to try to do during your peak week is take you from this point where you are as lean as you can be, but also mostly glycogen depleted, and cap out intramuscular glycogen storage so that your muscles are as full or essentially reinflated as it possibly can be when you're on stage.
Pounds of rice.
Maybe. Basically, though, the principle is that you have the same very thin layer of skin and subcutaneous fat with muscles that are kind of reinflated or larger than they were a week ago. And that is really what kind of enhances both the appearance of size, but more importantly, appearance of separation, is if you have a bigger muscle pressing out against that thin layer of skin, all of those
Right.
separations then look deeper, right? So that's the principle. That's the goal. The way that you're going to accomplish this, I'm going to really simplify and say there's two very basic approaches that I might recommend you start with. One is called backloading. This is more conservative, where whatever your normal numbers are at the bottom of your diet, when you're about a week out, you'll start to taper them up. So specifically, carbs will come upward.
Mhm.
You may decrease your protein because you're just so high, just to make room for the extra food. You might end up increasing fat. There's a entirely separate conversation to have about peaking intramuscular fat. I don't want to complicate this with that just yet, but your fat may come up, but most of this is going to be carb intake. So you might go from, what are your carbs at now?
About 20 grams plus my body weight, so 190 to 200.
Okay, so let's say by the time you reach the bottom of your diet, your carbs like 100 grams a day. You'll probably get to a point where you're like triple, quadruple that within that taper week.
Yeah.
So you'll come upward, may even be higher than that toward the end, but it'll basically be, if it graphs out over time, your day one of peak week is going to be, say, your normal numbers. You're going to step it up, 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 up until your show day. And the nice thing about doing this, where you're increasing steadily into show day, is if you start to notice that you're spilling over is basically eating so much that you're now storing new fat.
Yeah.
If you start to notice that you're spilling over, suspecting that you are, which by the way, it's really hard to do. A lot of people freak out and they think they've spilled over and they haven't. But if you start to suspect that, all you would do then is pull your numbers back down for the last like 1 or 2 days.
Right.
You're fine. So that's a really easy way to manage that. A more aggressive approach that's also very common is front loading, which would be in the first few days of that peak week. We go like from, let's say it was 100 up to, I'm just making up a number
Like
just to give you an example.
700.
Maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
700-800 carbs for like 2 days. So we try to cap out or get close to capping out intramuscular glycogen over the course of a couple of days early in that week. We see how you look and feel. Then we probably taper back down to readjust if we have. A lot of times when we front load, we do that with athletes who are more than certainly lean enough to compete and win, or as lean as we want them to be. So if we do spill over on that front load, that's kind of fine. We'll taper them back down for a couple of days. And that final day, maybe day and a half, we go up again just to make sure we're fully capped out.
Right.
That's a more aggressive approach.
That's the approach I was more familiarized with.
I think that's
what I've been
generally
reading.
more effective.
Okay.
It's way more assertive, but again, it does kind of rely on you being about as lean as you need to be or as lean as you'd like to be before your show. But either way, I would definitely encourage you to allow for, that final week not to be a week where you're losing fat anymore. Like you really want to spend that week optimizing carb storage.
That is the one big thing that excuse me, sorry. That was one big takeaway that I noticed from all of the articles and research that I've done is that thing that you just mentioned about, okay, well, going into this peak week, like don't assume that you're going to lose more fat in this last week.
You're not. Yeah, you shouldn't.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that is one thing that all of those articles said. So it is good to hear it from somebody who's done it firsthand. Again, like you can read all you want, but at the end of the day, like a scientist wrote that, not a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And I have read from both sides of the fence. I have read from the scientist camp and I have read from the bodybuilder camp. The bodybuilder camp makes me feel a little bit better about my education level.
I mean, nowadays you have fucking scientist bodybuilders. Make me feel bad about both my physique and my knowledge.
Yeah. Shout out Jeff Nipper. Always feel like crap watching your videos. Awesome dude though. Yeah, no, exactly though. And I remember it was a handful of months ago when I was talking to you about, it was when I was first exposed to intra and extracellular fluids. And that was like very daunting to me. And it was one of those things that I kind of dove into and overanalyzed. And I came across one article, and this dude has a background in the science behind bodybuilding and nutrition, but he also has done it firsthand for multiple years. And he said at the very start of his article, like,
do you remember who it was?
I don't, but I can get you the name.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have the article saved. I've actually been meaning to print it out before it gets locked behind a paywall. Like all
Smart.
Yeah.
Like MFP. MFP buys the article and they put it into their premium.
I'd be so sad. Yeah. I in all honesty though, I would probably pay for it for this specific article. And I will send it to you. It's a very short read, but it's very, very educational, I think.
Yeah.
Again, this is coming from somebody that doesn't really have the biggest educational background when it comes to these things. A lot of the stuff that I've learned along the way is self-taught, which is good and bad. Because
what did you study in school?
Business management. I took the easiest thing, man.
Yeah.
So I went to school to run. That's what I tell a lot of people. I didn't go for the education.
Yeah. It's all right. It got you your job.
Yeah. No, exactly right. And I'm not trying to say that, business management should be looked down on. I think it's very important. But I also acknowledge and accept the fact that when I was going through the motions of doing so, I didn't really care all that much, which is kind of sad to say.
Sure.
Like I came to a point in my life where I cared less about my education than I did my physical performance. So I
asked though, because I wonder how much you would have enjoyed being like a physio or kines major or something.
It's funny that you mentioned that because the minor that I picked up during those years where I was trying to extend my stay in college was kinesiology.
There you go. Yeah.
So the first two classes I took were anatomy and physio. And then I had taken it was like nutrition for athletic lifestyle, something like that.
Yeah.
And then an injury prevention rehab class.
Do they have a class that's called nutrition for an obese lifestyle?
No, not to my knowledge. I don't think they had that. I mean, that class would have been fairly straightforward. It would have just been a math equation on a whiteboard.
Normal America.
Yeah. But no, so they had a handful of classes that I took. I didn't complete the minor. Because that was when I kind of removed myself from the sport of running and I had already finished my major. I had one more class to take. So I just finished everything as fast as I could and left. I can't remember what I was originally talking about, but oh, that article, yeah. So he had mentioned a lot of things that were very helpful, and one of the things that he mentioned was something you actually just said, which made me feel really, really good. Big sigh of relief there. Was don't worry about spilling over. Like we're not going to utilize such hit or miss practices.
Yeah.
And his approach to it was that of your peak week, you shouldn't have the goal of losing an extra half a pound of fat during that. It's like the peak week should be you getting ready to step on the stage.
Yeah.
That's the only thing in your mind for the entirety of that week. He said block out everything else.
Yeah.
You're worried about getting on the stage, doing what you have to do. But it made me feel really good to hear you say that though. So now
I'm reminded of this experience about last season when I competed. I did, I think, 3 shows that season. And so at the time, I had the privilege of training the same gym as Alberto Nunez. So I'd see him there, a few times a week. And he was always super generous with his time and his knowledge when we trained together. I'd ask him questions. And I remember it was either after my first or second show of the season, he asked me about my peak week and like what I had done with it, and like we went through some numbers, and he just told me like, yeah, I had a suspicion that you weren't being like assertive enough with your numbers, so you probably could go up by whatever the amount was. And I was like, are you sure? But like, of course, he knew better than me, and I trusted him. He kind of helped me structure my peak week for the next show, whatever it was. I think it might have been for my last show that season, which is actually the one where I won my NGA pro card. I definitely looked better there than I did. I think it was only 3 weeks prior. But yeah, I think nowadays, my approach back then was very much, I would go through the first peak and evaluate how I thought I looked, which is a really tricky way to do it because you're so emotionally invested in that result. Whereas the way he was going about it was more mathematical. It's like, you're this big. This is about how much you could probably store. Here's how we'd spread out those carbs over the week. And I think that's a much better way to go about it because then it's really just, it's like programming or training. You're kind of just following instructions that you've already laid out. And as long as you trust that your math was correct, you're going to be better off because of it.
Right.
But yeah, I do think that peak week for you, that's tough because if you only have the one show, then you won't have many chances to reiterate. But that's one reason maybe I'd encourage you to do more than one show. But also I would definitely try to start thinking about what that looks like ahead of time and just making sure that you are lean enough beforehand. So even if that means that you lose weight a little faster in the next, say, 4 weeks, so you can let off the gas, a week earlier than you were planning to, it's definitely worth blocking out that entire week for sure before your show.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Are there any other mysteries of prep or competition that are swirling in your head?
Ooh. I don't think so. I don't know. Like I've kind of come to terms with the fact that I'm just going to show up and whatever happens, happens.
But some of the enjoyment, right, is like not knowing what's
happening. Exactly. And I like the aspect of that. I like the aspect of not knowing things. Keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
Keeps it light. Keeps me mentally engaged to the point where I know that there are things that I don't know.
Yeah.
As weird as that kind of sounds to say. But yeah, no, I like the fact that there are aspects of bodybuilding that I am unfamiliar with yet.
Yeah.
Because I like it's like Shrek, it's like the
layers.
Onion theory, right? There's layers to it, right? And I understand that with each new layer that's revealed is another level of competition that I'm not used to or I haven't been subjected to yet. So I'm also looking forward to that. Like as you start to learn these weird one-off quirks that relate only to the bodybuilding industry and world, it takes you to that next level, right?
Yeah.
So whereas you're mentioning something with consistency, right? Like most people, bars here, and then jumping into the gym, I was initially here, but it's like, okay, well, there are other aspects where I might be below that initial average baseline, and those are the things that I'm interested to learn about along my bodybuilding journey and catch them up to speed as well. But
what do you think has been the hardest part about prep so far, or bodybuilding in general so far?
Probably learning everything.
Yeah. There's so much, right?
Yeah.
So much to learn.
Education has never been my strong point. I like to think I'm a very intellectual individual, but I might give off that persona more than I actually am.
What does that mean?
people might hear me talk in snippets of things that I am extremely passionate about and think, wow, this guy is extremely smart. But in reality,
Nobody
like,
thinks that.
yeah, thank you for confirming. Now I can live my life without that fear dwindling over me. But no, like there are like weird one-off things about life, right? Like, for example, you're very into automobiles, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody broke something, or sorry, if you were to break something down for somebody, they might listen to what you're saying and think like, wow, like this guy really knows his stuff when it comes to cars or whatever it may be,
Sure,
right?
sure, sure.
I something else. But no, so like people are listening to the way you talk about this and they're thinking, wow, like this guy really knows his stuff.
Mm.
But in reality, you're just passionate about that. Right.
So what they hear is like, it's like they hear passion, not necessarily knowledge.
Correct. And I think passion and knowledge are two very different things. I think they often intertwine.
Yeah.
But again, two completely different things. Passion will take you loads further than knowledge ever will.
Yeah.
The combination of the two of those will get you to places that only, top performers, top athletes ever get to.
Yeah.
And it's finding the middle ground between the two of those. But anyways, yeah, I think that I'm very passionate about the things that I do hold dear to my heart, but I wouldn't necessarily say I'm the most knowledgeable when it comes to those things.
Yeah, and it's tricky because there's no shortage of availability of information.
None. Yeah.
You almost kind of have to sift through all of it though to determine what is, for one, like what is correct, and then two, what is actually important for you to know right now.
Right.
So like you could learn anything about anything. It doesn't mean that it's useful for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think there's almost this trap nowadays of I have a few clients that come to mind where they know a lot about things that it's like interesting, but I also know that they're never going to need to know that.
Yeah, like
they're never going to be able to use it.
Yeah, an acre is 43,560 square feet. Why would you ever need to know that?
Or I have a cousin who I love very much, and she knows a lot of weird facts about like. She told me the other day that there are buffalo in Golden Gate Park, and I was like, "Wow, I never would have known."
Yeah,
why is that important though?
Yeah, but I love people like that, right? Because like they're very smart, they're very intellectual, but with things that might not be your passion, right? So to deny
in fairness to her, it was important in that specific moment because I was running through Golden Gate Park. But
okay,
there are plenty of times where like little bits of knowledge like that. I think, and especially when you're researching, let's say in the realm of bodybuilding, you might start out thinking, I need to learn how to peak for my bodybuilding show, and then learn 12 other things that didn't matter, right?
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's tricky, but a lot of that is, I mean, that's some of the fun maybe of you doing this on your own. That's also on the other end of the spectrum, though, why a lot of people do hire they essentially delegate that to like a coach. So some of my job for my clients is just telling them like, here's the things that I need you to know now. Like focus on learning these. If you learn anything extra, that's fine.
So yeah, I think having a coach and not having a coach is very similar to, again, I can't speak in definitives because I don't own a business.
It's okay.
But
yes, yeah.
I would assume it's very similar to running your own business and being employed or having a job. In a sense that if you have a coach, they're telling you what you need to know. Like you just mentioned, they're telling you what you need to do.
It's like having an employer or manager.
Exactly. Which I'm very envious of because a coach has the ability to tell you, you need to do this, this, and this. If you trust that coach, which you should, if you have a coach, you should trust them. And you should be able to just follow their guidance, right? You don't have to put any additional thought, effort, or anything into it, energy, time.
Yeah.
Whereas when you don't have a coach and you approach some type of roadblock or you find, oh man, like I really need help. Like I'm really struggling 6 weeks out. Mentally, I'm just not there anymore. I drop my phone and I'm too tired to pick it up, right?
Yeah.
When you get to that point, what do you have to do? Okay, now you have to go and research. You have to spend more additional time and energy into this thing that you're not even sure if it's going to work because it's all on your shoulders.
Yeah.
So I would assume, again, I can't say definitively, but I would assume that that's very similar to like certain aspects of running a business.
It is, but I'd also say that a lot of people do that wrong. I've done this wrong for a long time, where you assume that if you run your own business, you then have to figure everything out on your own. But the fact is there are so many people who have done something similar, if not the same as what you've done more successfully than you. So you just have to figure out who to ask.
Right.
A lot of times, like you could just as well do the research, learn it by yourself. It's just going to take you way longer to figure out like, what do I actually need to learn? But if you know enough people and you're willing to ask for help, somebody out there is much more capable than you, much more knowledgeable.
Yeah, you.
Um,
That's a perfect
and,
example.
I mean, even like in building a business, there's been a handful of times where like the last one, if I didn't have access to a lot of people that I did, we couldn't have accomplished even like a tenth of what we did. But
Mhm.
I think a lot of people in both realms, like whether that's coaching, coaching yourself or running a business, they kind of assume it's like all on you, it's by yourself. And it can be
Mhm.
if you're too prideful to ask for help.
Right.
But I think that'd be a huge mistake on either end.
I would agree.
Um,
That was been one of the funnest things to me is approaching that, right? And deciding when it's time to kind of reach out or like speak my mind about something, to hear back from people who have experienced this firsthand.
yeah.
It's really enjoyable to me to kind of do those things and look back at it retroactively, right? Because had I not had one simple conversation with you that I don't even think started in relation to bodybuilding as the topic of discussion for our conversation, but it got there as it usually does organically.
Every
and
conversation is
yeah.
about bodybuilding.
Well, no, but it was just funny because like it happened to come up, right?
Yeah.
And it was something that you had mentioned in regard to not starting your initial prep at your peak bulk, right?
Yeah.
So like that would be a very big mistake for a first time competitor. Had you and I not had that conversation, I'd be sitting here at 205 pounds right now. You know what I mean? Like it would be vastly different, and I would be in a world of hurt.
For the
for the next-
listeners, how heavy were you at the peak of your bulk?
213 or 214. It was one of the two of those.
I think that conversation, the way it went, was like I, as kindly as I could, I was like, dude, you're too fat.
Yeah.
But fully seriously, I think we talked about kind of like a pre-prep diet, right?
It's funny that you mentioned that was how the conversation went, because I remember specifically telling you, like, I sat down and I felt part of my part of my back jiggle ever so slightly. And I was like, yeah, that's the end of the bulk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as that conversation progressed, you're like, no, that's probably a good thing that, it's time to move in the opposite direction.
I think a lot of people don't give themselves enough time to get lean enough.
Yeah.
And as a result, they move too quickly on the way down, which does two things. One, they don't get lean enough. And then also they end up making prep way more miserable than it has to be because they're eating way less.
You probably lose a more significant amount of your muscle
For sure.
percentage.
For sure. Yeah.
I would assume, because you have to cut twice as hard now.
What do you think is the most important thing or things that you've learned so far? I mean, you're only partway through prep, and I'll probably ask you the same question again 20 weeks from now.
Right.
But what do you think that is to this point?
To be lighthearted about it.
Yeah.
Again, like my life's not on the line here when I'm doing this. I'm not doing this
You're
to
not
feed my
going
family.
to war.
Yeah, no, exactly. Right. Like, yeah. So I think to approach it with a light heart. But like if you're looking for a legitimate answer, I know that's like the cliche.
That's a good answer. Yeah.
But if you're looking for a legitimate answer, like what is the most important thing I've learned? It's probably how to train effectively. Prior I was doing a lot of junk volume, but it was because it made me feel good. I liked being in the gym, and I was going to pursue bodybuilding as a byproduct of
you were
enjoyment
chasing
in the
a
gym.
feeling, not necessarily chasing an end result.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would get a good pump going,
Yeah.
and I would just be like, oh, like how much better can this get? And it's like, all right, I've already done 9 sets of chest. Let me go and do 4 more.
Yeah.
That's a very I mean, do as you please, but that approach did not work for me.
I think there's a lot of debate right now and a lot of good arguments to be made around specific exercise execution, like how slowly should you move, how long should your range of motion be, and so on. And I think there's a wide range of what could be effective there. But once you settle on your execution of an exercise, I do think it helps a lot to have empirical metrics by which you measure your performance, because that's probably the most consistent way for you to ensure that you're effectively stimulating muscle growth. Whereas like what you used to do, and what you'll probably stop doing going into your next off season as well, is just going based on feel.
Yeah.
Because that changes based on so many different things, right?
So much. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could, that going based off feel alone could have you doing a very effective workout. But like, let's say you had a really crappy day leading up to your workout.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, like if you had a really crappy day, now you kind of just feel like crap. So now you're going to train like, subpar. Like, is
Yeah.
that probably not the best use of your time? But again,
Yeah.
yeah, no, there has been a lot of debate recently online with what works best, what rep ranges should you do, how should the tempo be, should you pause in the stretched position,
Yeah.
all these things where when I think it gets that granular, um, I personally believe that, okay, well, if I'm continuing to make progress week over week in terms of muscle size or muscle engagement,
Mhm.
like that should speak for itself. Yeah, that doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities to make that better and find that craft even more.
Yeah.
And I'm more than happy to explore those avenues when the time comes. But if I'm continuing to make steady progress as I'm currently doing, then in my eyes, I see nothing wrong with my training regimen,
Yeah.
which I know that there is plenty wrong with it. There's tons of holes you could poke in
Always
it.
stuff to learn though. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think having an open mind is probably one of the biggest things to lead to success in bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And again, that's something I believe. That's not something that I am saying definitively because I haven't done it yet. I've yet to compete, so I can't say whether or not that an open mind is the best thing to have in bodybuilding. But
I don't know. Well, I like what you were saying just before about being lighthearted about the whole thing. 'Cause I think a lot of people who compete in bodybuilding, it's very common to have this mental approach of almost it's like masochism, like you're punishing
it's do or
yourself.
die. Yeah.
And as a result, though, the way you end up handling yourself, it's like a punishment to everybody around you.
Right.
And a lot of people who come to me and ask about working together for a bodybuilding prep, the questions I ask them have a lot more to do with how they think they're going to manage it mentally, emotionally on the way in.
Mhm.
Because if we suspect at all that they would be one of those people who's kind of like shitty to their partner, their family, their friends, and so on because they decided to do this thing,
Right.
they're just not a good candidate to go through it. At least not in my opinion. You can do that. You could probably do pretty well at competing that way. It's just not enjoyable for you and anybody else.
Right. Right. Yeah, I
And
didn't want to be one of those.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of like maybe you when you were much younger might have been, but and I was certainly that way maybe in like part of my first season, but I learned really quickly that it's like what's the point? Like it doesn't make me any better. If
Right.
anything, it makes me slightly worse, and it makes the whole thing like more miserable than it needs to be. Uh, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't encourage you or anybody else to forget that nobody's forcing you to do this,
No
right?
one.
This is a choice that you get to make, and it's pretty cool that you have the time and effort and energy and money
It's a
to be able to
privilege.
spend on this. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I have the money.
we'll find out. Yeah, like day before the show. Shit, I don't
Yeah.
have enough money to do this.
Ah.
All this for nothing.
I'll just be posing outside the outside the
You'll
building
break
by
in from
myself.
backstage. So 16 weeks from now, is your show 15.
Almost 14, yeah.
Okay, so maybe probably not right after, but sometime after, like a month, 2 months after, I might ask you to come back on so we can talk about how you did.
Yeah.
I would encourage you, if you don't already do this, take a bunch of pictures, take a bunch of videos of how you look along the way through your prep. So
Every
you have the
day.
comparison to make every
Yep.
day, probably too often.
Try my best. Well, it's because I'm in the routine now of posing every day, at least for 10 minutes.
Okay.
If I'm like rushing, it'll be a quick little 10-minute posing session. I just run through the mandatories and then I turn the camera off.
Okay.
But I figured, like if my phone is right there and I'm using it as a, metric to base my progress,
Yeah.
like I might as well. It's easy enough to hit record.
Yeah.
The tripod's already sitting there in my office. So all
No, and
have to
I
do
think that
is-
as long as you can not drive yourself nuts doing that, that's probably
I
a good
don't.
thing.
Yeah.
Like if you ever suspect that you look worse, say tomorrow, you think you look worse, you should compare that to the 3 days previous.
Right.
If one of those 3 days looks better, you're wrong. You look about the same all 3 days,
Yeah.
right?
a
And then
mental
you'll
game.
know exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because you send those pictures to somebody from 2 different days, they're not going to know a
Yeah,
difference.
like what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, they're not
Same
gonna tell.
picture.
Yeah. Oh, you changed the lighting on the second one or something? Yeah. It's like same exact thing. But no, I've gotten good at removing myself from that level of overanalyzation.
Yeah.
Mostly through telling other people that they shouldn't do it, which is something that's kind of funny, right? Because we as humans, you're in your own body every single day for your whole life.
Mhm.
That's just a fact.
I hope so.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Right. Until Elon figures something out, that's just a fact. Right. But with that comes the fact that you are naturally going to overanalyze all of your own flaws.
Yeah.
Imperfections are very easy to highlight when you see them every single day. right?
Yes.
If you don't like the way your hair parts one way or another, if you don't like the way that your tricep insertion was genetically given to you, right? Like, okay, those are imperfections that you notice,
Yeah.
right? Do you think anybody else is going to notice that and immediately critically analyze you outside
Oh,
of a
no.
bodybuilding stage?
That's the only thing that was on stage. That's kind of the
Right.
job of the judges.
And that's why I was saying, like, I tell this to general public.
Yeah.
This is not advice I would give to a bodybuilder. I wouldn't give any advice to a bodybuilder because I am not one yet.
I don't know, man. I think you should stop saying that, because I think that you are. If you are pursuing like building your physique, whether that's for the sake of competition or not, you are. The only difference is whether or not you've gotten on stage. And I mean, if we really, you can argue semantics all you want, but I think the only difference is that maybe you, at that point, you tell people I placed whatever I placed at this show, or I've done X number of shows. But yeah, like through and through, you were very clearly a bodybuilder.
So would you apply that knowledge to all avenues of growth?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Like if you're, oh, I'm a billionaire. Well, I haven't had $1 billion yet, but I'm working. Yeah. No, I get that though. That makes 100% sense, because buying into something like a bodybuilding competition and actually convincing yourself that you're going to do it.
Yeah.
You have to be.
Yeah, and I mean, there's plenty of people who are, I would say, are really good bodybuilders who've never gotten on stage, and maybe they won't just because it's not their thing, and that's fine. Right. Are you online?
Very loosely, not a ton.
Okay. I mean, if somebody wanted to see how you do on stage and they don't come back to the podcast, where would they find that? Would they? They wouldn't. They
Muscle Mayhem website. I'm not too sure entirely. Through pictures of their other buddies on the stage.
You can come watch Derek at the Muscle Mayhem on what date? November
7th
in Sacramento. Well, Elk Grove, technically, I think.
No, Sacramento would be correct.
Is it Sacramento?
Yeah, Sheldon High School is Sacramento.
Oh, that's crazy.
It's on the north side of Calvine.
Well, there you go. So come watch Derek on stage in November at Sheldon High School.